Hi, good morning, and welcome to our service here at First Baptist Church. Those of you on Facebook, we like to welcome as well. And happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. We thank you, and it's your special day, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Please join me in reading our call to worship. When dangers invade our sense of safety and we wonder if our Redeemer cares, we hear the invitation. Be at peace, be calm. When we face job loss and financial downturns and our sense of security is shaky, we hear the invitation. Be at peace, be calm. When our congregations experience distress, conflict, and loss of significant leadership, we hear the invitation. Be at peace, be calm. When controversial issues and rigidity of spirit threaten to tear at the very fabric of the faith community, we hear the invitation. Be at peace, be calm. When our lives feel chaotic and desolate because of illness or sorrow, we hear the invitation. Be at peace, be calm. Please join us as we sing our hymn today, number 36, Praise the Lord, ye heavens adore him. We'll sing the first two verses.
Our scripture reading this morning comes from 1 Samuel 17. Now the Philistines gathered their armies for battle, and there came out from the camp of the Philistines a champion named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of bronze on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. The weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. He had greaves of bronze on his legs, and a javelin of bronze slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and his shield-bearer went before him. He stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why have you come out to draw up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves and let him come down to me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." And the Philistine said, Today I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man that we may fight together." When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. David rose early in the morning, left the sheep with a keeper, took the provisions, and went as Jesse had commanded him. He came to the encampment as the army was going forth to the battle line, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines drew up for battle, army against army. David left the things in charge of the keeper of the baggage, ran to the ranks, and went and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, came up out of the ranks of the Philistines and spoke the same words as before, and David heard him. David said to Saul, "Let no one's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine." Saul said to David, "You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are just a boy, and he has been a warrior from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep sheep for his father, and whenever a lion or a bear came and took a lamb from the flock, I went after it and struck it down, rescuing the lamb from its mouth. And if it turned against me, I would catch it by the jaw, strike it down, and kill it. Your servant has killed both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, since he has defied the armies of the living God." David said, "The Lord, who saved me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, will save me from the hand of the Philistine." So Saul said to David, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a bronze helmet on his head and clothed him with a coat of mail. David strapped Saul's sword over the armor, and he tried in vain to walk, for he was not used to them. Then David said to Saul, "I cannot walk with these, for I am not used to them." So David removed them. Then he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the wadi and put them in his shepherd's bag, in the pouch. His sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. The Philistine came on and drew near to David, with his shield-bearer in front of him. When the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was only a youth, ruddy and handsome in appearance. The Philistine said to David, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David, "Come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and to the wild animals of the field." But David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This very day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And I will give the dead bodies of the Philistine army this very day to the birds of the air and to the wild animals of the earth, so that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel, and that all this assembly may know that the Lord does not save by sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hand." When the Philistine drew nearer to meet David, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. David put his hand in his bag, took out a stone, slung it, and struck the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell, face down, on the ground.
Well, the story of David and Goliath is, of course, one of the most familiar stories in the Bible. For some reason, we like to tell this story to children. Maybe because it's good versus evil. And the good guy is battling the bad guy and the good guy wins. We love those kind of stories, especially for our children. But for me, turning David into a superhero, one that doesn't have any flaws, certainly misses the point of the text. Last week, we saw God reminding Samuel, as he searched for Israel's next king, that God looks at the heart. And so Samuel was to choose a runt to be the next king of Israel. And this scene happens, of course, before David becomes king of Israel. Israel is in trouble as it's right on the verge of war with its neighboring superpower, the Philistines. The two sides are eyeing each other from opposite mountains. Walter Brueggemann has said what makes this story so powerful is because the world that you and I live in is a world full of big, intimidating, and oppressive giants. We all have them, all of us. Giants out there that are using intimidation to discourage us as we make our journey. I couldn't help but see this story as a story of contrast. There you have Goliath, standing, if you do the math, almost 10 feet tall. Impressive. On top of that, covered from head to toe with the latest armor, the best money could buy, of course. On top of that, Goliath was loud and proud. His greatest weapon was intimidation. He shouted insults, if you listened carefully. That was his method, to look intimidating, to be loud and proud, to shout insults to anyone and to everyone. He was consistent. David seems, on the other hand, so small. The text said he's just a boy. He seems so small and meek in comparison. In fact, he wasn't even old enough to fight in the army. His only job was to take food to his brothers. Just an errand boy. That's all he was. The text says he was a shepherd. Well, what does that mean? It means in that culture he was a nobody, a nothing. And no one has written any better about sheep or shepherd than Barbara Brown Taylor. And in fact, I think for us to understand this text, we have to understand both sheep and the shepherd. To understand this story of contrast. She says, when she wrote once, that she learned about sheep from a friend who grew up on a sheep farm in the Midwest. And according to her friend, sheep are not dumb at all. Cattle ranchers are responsible, she says, for spreading that ugly rumor. Her friend told her that cows are herded from the rear by hooting cowboys with cracking whips. But that won't work with sheep. Stand behind them making loud noises, and all they will do is run around behind you in circles because they prefer to be led. Her friend said that you push cows. That's what you do. You push cows, but you lead sheep. They will not go anywhere that someone doesn't lead them, namely their shepherd, who goes ahead of them to show them that everything is all right. Then she writes, sheep tend to grow fond of their shepherds. A shepherd can walk right through a sleeping flock without disturbing a single one. A stranger, on the other hand, could not step foot in the fold without causing pandemonium. Sheep have a relationship with the shepherd. David learned everything he needed to learn about leadership by being a shepherd, by leading sheep. You don't lead them with brute force. You lead them with gentleness and humility. You notice in this text, there's something really funny in this text. There's always humor, if you can find it. That Saul tried to fit David with his armor, but none of it would fit. He looked quite silly trying to put on Saul's armor. I think that's important for us to pause and think about how silly it is when we try to pretend to be someone we're not. Honest to goodness, I knew a pastor who used to listen to Billy Graham tapes, videotapes. And he would try to imitate on Sunday morning Billy Graham. His gestures, his speech. Can you imagine how silly that must be for someone to try to pretend to be Billy Graham? Well, give David credit. He doesn't pretend to be someone he isn't. And that's such a contrast in the day in which we live. So many people trying to imitate someone they really aren't. And there in this story, we see Goliath with his imposing physical presence. Big man, lots of armor, so loud and in your face. Out there hurling one insult after another. Mary Evans once wrote, she says, the weight of his armor suggests that he was meant to frighten rather than to fight. And the whole context of this story is that David just wasn't buying it. He just wasn't afraid. Mainly, he wasn't afraid to be himself. The author Brené Brown once wrote that authenticity is a collection of choices we have to make every day. It's about the choice to show up and be real. The choice to be honest. The choice to let our true selves be seen. David wasn't trusting in himself. He didn't have armor to put on. He wasn't afraid of failure, it appears. He was trusting in all those moments he had experienced out there in the fields. Somehow he believed all those experiences was enough to take on the giant. No wonder David wrote, "The Lord is my shepherd." The Lord is my shepherd. Lastly, Walter Brueggemann gives us the real nugget about this text. You know, we could spend hours talking about this text. What is this story really about? Well, Walter Brueggemann, I think, hits it out of the park when he writes, in the end, this story really isn't about the giant or David. The story is really about God. The intent of this encounter is to make clear yet again that Yahweh saves. Not with conventions of human warfare, but in Yahweh's own inscrutable ways. It just keeps on reminding us God's ways just aren't ours. And this story is here, I believe, to remind us to model David. Where do we place our trust? In whom do you and I place our trust? Certainly not in our own abilities. Certainly not in our armor or our intellect. But this story reminds us to place our faith in God and in God alone.
Strength to live your days here in this world. He'll make a way. He'll make a way for you. Faith is hard to find, and doubt has made you blind to who you are. You wonder why go on? Why did you ever stop? How did you get this far? But then you feel his hand and begin to understand as he leads the way. What he begins in you, he will finish, he will do, and it begins today. The Lord will make a way for you. He will bring you through with the Lord in the night of pain. And He will give you strength to live your days here in this world. He'll make a
Would you pray with me? And so it is, God, that some things never change. The world we live in is always with a Goliath, using fear and intimidation to discourage us along the journey. And the giants are always the same, so loud and proud, shouting insults. And we often respond just like the people of Israel. We cower down, live in fear. Anxiety is all around us. And yet you remind us in this text that you rise up people that seem so weak, so incapable. And somehow they have placed their trust in you. And they run toward the giants. And the gospel just keeps reminding us that you will make a way. And how grateful we are. And we are here to be reminded that you just keep on making a way when it doesn't seem that one is available. And so we trust in you. We declare with David, you are our shepherd. You are the great shepherd. And we will trust in you. Amen.